Virgo. This one snuck up on me too. Anna here from Virgo. I didn't see this coming in the way I usually see things coming. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, subscribe if something in you just went quiet. Let's listen. What is the sound of something you stopped believing in becoming real? Not a rhetorical question. Sit with it as an actual question because there is a sound, not a dramatic one, not the sound of trumpets or the cinematic swell of something announced. Quieter than that, more interior. The specific, soft, almost inaudible sound of a belief that was closed, reopening, of a door that had been locked, not dramatically locked, not locked with ceremony, but locked the way things get locked when you stop going through them. And the lock forms gradually from the accumulation of not using it. That door, which you had perhaps stopped remembering, was a door at all, making the faint sound of its own mechanism, of something engaging that had disengaged, of the possible quietly becoming actual in the specific way that actual things sound, which is almost like nothing at all. That sound is what is happening right now around you. In the territory of the thing you stopped fully believing in, the thing you managed downward, not consciously, not in a single dramatic decision to stop hoping, but incrementally. Through the accumulation of the evidence that made hoping feel expensive, through the specific protective process by which people who have been disappointed enough learn to insulate the hoping from the full electrical current of their own, wanting to hold it at a slightly reduced temperature, to let the intensity of it lower to a level that is manageable if it doesn't materialize, to translate the original large hope into a smaller, more reasonable seeming version that can be maintained without the specific exposure of someone who wants something at full force. You translated the hope, the untranslated version of it, the original, full sized, exactly what you actually wanted version, is what is becoming real. Miracle. The word deserves honest engagement before we proceed, because it is a loaded one, carrying the freight of every supernatural connotation that makes people either embrace it uncritically or dismiss it entirely, neither of which is what is being asked here. What is being asked is engagement with the precise, stripped down, secular meaning of the word, its actual meaning, beneath the layering of theology and wishful thinking and cultural association. A miracle is something that exceeds the limits of what was considered possible within a given system, full stop. Not supernatural, not divine, not the violation of physical law by an external force. Simply something that the available model of what was possible could not have predicted, that arrived outside the range of outcomes the model was generating. That required the model to expand or be replaced to account for its existence. By that definition, unexpected miracles happen regularly. They happen every time something real occurs, that the protective, self-limiting, I've learned better model of what is possible for a specific person in a specific situation could not have predicted. Every time the hope that was translated into something smaller turns out to have been right at its original size. Every time what actually happens exceeds what the management of expectations had made room for. These are miracles in the only sense that matters, in the sense of reality exceeding the model. In the sense of the world being larger and more generative than the accumulated evidence of a careful person's experience had led them to believe, something is about to exceed your model in the direction of more, not less, in the direction of the untranslated version of what you wanted, in the direction of the original, full sized, exactly what you actually wanted, which was always true, which the translation never changed, which has been there in its original form beneath the managed version the whole time, takes you by surprise. Why surprise? Why, when something is described as a miracle, as something exceeding what was considered possible, is it also described as surprising? Shouldn't miracles be anticipated by the people who most want them? Shouldn't the hope that was maintained, however reduced in temperature, have produced some expectation of its own fulfillment? No. And this is important because hope and expectation are not the same thing. Hope says this could happen, expectation says this will. And the person who has been through enough to translate their hope into something manageable has almost always also translated their expectation into something realistic, has learned to hold the hope and simultaneously hold the knowledge that the hope may not be fulfilled, to keep those two things in a kind of functional tension that allows them to keep going without either the paralysis of complete hopelessness or the vulnerability of complete openness. The surprise comes from the expectation, not the hope. The hope knew. Somewhere in the original untranslated version of the hope, this was always possible, but the expectation, calibrated, protected, realistic, had not included this, had not made room for it, had continued to manage the possibility as something that might not materialize. And so when it does materialize, when the miracle exceeds the model, the surprise is real. The hope that knew feels something like recognition. The expectation that didn't feels something like the specific, sweet vertigo of being wrong in the best possible direction. You are about to be wrong in the best possible direction. The confession. This is the heart of it. The urgent heart, the miracle shaped heart, the take you by surprise heart. A confession is not a disclosure, not an announcement, not the communication of information that happened to be personal. A confession is the specific, costly, cannot be uncost act of making visible what was invisible, of bringing out of the interior what has been living there perhaps for a long time, perhaps for longer than you would believe if you were told the length of it, and placing it in the shared space between two people in the light where it cannot be taken back. The cost of it is the surprise because you did not expect it, because the person confessing has been giving you insufficient reason to expect, it has been maintaining whatever their interior was doing, a surface that did not prepare you for this, has been keeping the interior work of confession in progress, the assembling of courage, the accumulating of readiness, the repeated arriving at and retreating from the moment of saying, hidden from your view, so that when the moment finally comes, when the retreating stops and the saying begins, it arrives in a space that was not braced for it, not defended against it, open, because unguarded in the specific and rare way that makes the receiving of something true possible. The surprise is the opening. It is what allows the confession to land where it needs to land. What the confession contains, not a rehearsed statement, not the version that was prepared and polished and edited for maximum reception, though there has been preparation, there has been some version of rehearsal. There has been the imagining of this moment and what it might look like from both sides. But preparation in the confessional context reaches a point where it becomes irrelevant, where the magnitude of what needs to be said exceeds the capability of preparation to contain it, where the prepared version falls away and what emerges is the unprepared version, the version that corresponds to what is actually felt rather than what was designed to be expressed. The unprepared version is the real one. And the real one contains the following: in whatever form the saying of it takes, the length of the carrying. How long this has been present in them, not as a new development, not as something that arrived recently and is still being evaluated, but as something that has been there through the whole period in which they have been in your life, accumulating, deepening, becoming more itself rather than diminishing with time in the way that passing feelings diminish. The length of the carrying is itself the confession. Whatever words are used to express it, the underlying confession is: this has been true for longer than you knew. This was real before it was said. You were loved or wanted or needed. You were held in this person's interior at this magnitude before you had any reason to know it. You were held before you knew you were being held. That is the miracle. That is the surprise. That is the confession. Not a new thing beginning, an old thing finally becoming audible. Why now? Because something tipped. The specific, identifiable, this was the variable that changed something, that moved the confessor from the long period of carrying to the moment of speaking. Not a dramatic event. People who have been carrying something for a long time tend to have their confessions triggered by small things, by the specific, private, impossible to anticipate event of encountering their own limit, of reaching the point at which continued silence costs more than speaking, of finding in some ordinary moment that the weight of the unexpressed has exceeded the weight of the exposure required to express it. That moment arrived for this person. It may have arrived in the middle of something mundane, in a moment that will sound, if they ever describe it to you, almost comically ordinary: a song, a place, a piece of light at a specific angle, a moment of imagining life differently. But in that ordinary moment, something happened that the months of carrying had been building toward without their knowing it was building toward anything. The container reached its capacity. The pressure found its exit. The retreat stopped. The saying begins. How to receive a surprise confession, slowly. This is the instruction, and it runs counter to the impulse, because the impulse, when something unexpected and significant lands, is to respond immediately, to match the energy of the confession with a response of equivalent magnitude, to give the person who just made themselves profoundly vulnerable the immediate relief of knowing how their vulnerability was received. The impulse is generous. It is also slightly too fast. Let the confession finish before the response begins. Whew. Let it be fully said. Let them complete the saying in whatever form it takes, however halting, however imperfect, however different from the version they rehearsed. Let them arrive at the end of it on their own, without rescue, without the particular kindness that is actually the slightly premature closure of their most vulnerable moment. The saying needs to be complete. The confession is not complete until it is, and the completing of it is itself a thing of value, the experience of having been allowed to finish saying something that has been unsayable for so long. The full arc of it, the arrival at the end of it, and the specific quality of emptiness after that follows the long carrying of something that has finally been set down. Let them set it down, then receive it fully from the place in you that was always going to know what this was and what it meant and what, if anything, you want to do about the knowing. From the place that has its own version of the untranslated, its own original full-sized version of something it has been managing, from the place that will recognize what is being offered because it has been holding the corresponding thing for longer than it has been comfortable admitting. The corresponding thing, it is there. The miracle is not that something impossible happened. It is that something true became audible, that the long, invisible, interior reality of two people, the specific, unrepeatable, corresponds only to each other reality of what they carry in relation to one another, finally made the crossing from interior to exterior, from private to shared, from the silence in which it had been living to the air in which it can now be heard. Miracles in the human register are almost always like this. Not the violation of physical law, the violation of the interior silence that keeps real things from being spoken. The moment when someone finds, against the weight of all the reasons not to, the specific courage of the true thing, when the lock on the door that had stopped being used forms from not using it, disengages. When the prepared version falls away and the real version emerges and stands in the open for the first time, that is what is happening around you, toward you, in the interior of someone who has been holding your name in the deepest part of the carrying for longer than you knew. And the sound of it, the sound of the lock disengaging, of the door that had stopped being a door becoming a door again, is almost like nothing at all. Quiet, the quietest sound, the sound of something true finally being said. Listen for it, Virgo. It is already close enough to hear.